welcome to Destiny. And wow, have I got a lot of things to show you in this episode. I'm going to be covering the Thorn Exotic, which has been brought back in Year 3. And I'll be explaining how you get that quest if you're not acquainted with that. And I'll also be going over some of the new raid weapons I've managed to get. Principally doing the epic challenge mode this week that started off. Whew, it was a long fight, but we got there in the end, and you'll see that my emblem has changed to signify that I got through that great event. And one of the perks of getting that is, of course, you get one of these new perfected ornaments that I'm going to be saving up to be able to use on the hard raid armor, which is called Splice. So I'll show you that. So I have two there, spliced Cosmoclast plate rather than a Cosmoclast plate that you would get in a normal raid. And the only difference being then is that you can actually equip one of these ornaments and you get the glowing Seaver effect. So that's what I'm going to be saving them up for. But there is the Thorn, and the new raid weapons I managed to get were, so I have all the raid weapons now. The Ex Machina sniper rifle is one I really wanted to get, considering that it is in fact an Omolon, and I love Omolon sniper rifles. The Ethanova, which is the raid fusion rifle, and then the Sound and Fury rocket launcher. I will also talk about the Matador in terms of PvP, and also Telesto, and why that's a really fun fusion rifle to use. So without further ado, let's check out Thorn. Now, Thorn in Year 1 was an absolutely epic exotic, and out of all of the exotics in Year 1, I don't think any of them would have been described as a weapon that you necessarily feared. But in PvP, if somebody had Thorn, the other players feared the person with Thorn, because once you were headshotted with Thorn, you would get this green glowing effect on your screen, and that was it, you were finished. Thorn in Year 3 seems to have been significantly reduced in the kind of effectiveness it can do, but it's still a very effective weapon for headshots. So let's have a look at its perks. We have a choice of 3 different barrels. I've left it on there. Final round, the last round in a magazine, deals bonus damage, so very similar to things like Hawk Moon and other hand cannons that give you that perk. We have Snapshot or Send It or Perfect Balance. I've left it on Perfect Balance because it gives it more stability. And the main perk is Marker the Devourer. Now this is the one that really was so notorious, because rounds pierce targets and cause lingering damage over time, and it was that lingering damage over time, that green effect on your screen, that would cycle and just kill you off. However, what Bungie have done is I think they've reduced the iterations of the cycles of that area of effect damage and made it less potent. So let's just try it out, because actually I've only just got the quest, and before I try it out, I'm going to tell you how you get the quest. Well, the quest seems to be coinciding with the achievement in the progress book that you get, and the achievement you get for completing the Iron Lord bounties. Now let me see if I can find which one it is. This isn't that one. I'm going to find it difficult to find it now. Let me have a look. During the Plague Lands. So here, it's called Prove Your Metal, complete bounties by for the Iron Lords, and you have to complete 30 bounties. So what seems to be happening is either when you get that achievement, or just after that achievement, if you then complete bounties, you get a better chance of getting the quest. Now, the quest is soloable. It just takes time, and it's quite straightforward. Each quest step's quite straightforward. There's not really any great explanation required. You don't need other team members. It's just a 5-part quest chain, and eventually you'll get it. So, let's have a tryout of the old Thorn, because I only got it a few minutes ago, and decided then that would be a good time to make this video. In fact, I was waiting to get Thorn as the primary exotic in this video to show you. So let's have a look. Boom! Well, against low level, and of course I'm very high level, light, you're going to have no problems whatsoever. But like Hawkmoon, it's a weapon that rewards precision. And for PvP players, I've been in contact with a lot of players who play PvP much more than I do, and also play Trials of Osiris very well. They have been a great help informing you the different kinds of weapons in PvP that they prefer, and all of them have pretty much unanimously said that Thorn isn't the weapon it used to be. They agree that it is rewards precision play, but compared to some of the other hand cannons, say legendary hand cannons, it just doesn't seem to be as useful. And since Bungie have nerfed the perk that really made Thorn such a incredible weapon to have in PvP especially, it seems to have lost a little bit of its reputation. However, it's still an amazingly good looking exotic. You can see how bizarre it is, and it's one of those exotics like Bad Juju that if you want to mix up your play, you don't normally do hand cannons, and you just want an awesome looking weapon, and you're not so concerned about being numero uno all the time, then Thorn is going to be a great joy, a great alternative in your loadout. So that's Thorn. It's pretty good, but not as fearsome as it used to be, and for some, I think that's probably a relief to be honest. Because if we had a year 3 of Thorn, like year 1, then PvP would be dominated by Thorn. And of course Bungie is trying to balance things as best as they can. Right, so let's trade out, and I will trade out, well, I don't need to trade out, I will now demonstrate the Ex Machina and go over its perks. So what we have, and all the raid weapons, by the way, do not have variable rolls, which used to happen in the King's Fall raid. Each raid weapon has a fixed set of abilities, if you like. So we have a linear compensator, accurized ballistics. I put in accurized ballistics. We have spray and play, which increases the reload of the speed, which is very useful when the magazine is empty. You have a choice of 3 here. You can have injection mold, as you can see, but it reduces the range. I've put it on hand loaded. And the main perk is reloading this weapon when the magazine is empty, grants a larger than normal magazine. So basically when you start you have 3, and then when you reload you get 4 shots. It also has the Whirlwind's Curse, which does bonus damage against Fallen and bonus agility, and most of the raid weapons have this ability. So let's have a look. Actually I'll get to an advantage point and see if we can pick off some enemies from a distance, just to give you an idea of how great this is. Oh, listen to the sound, that Omalon sound. And you can see the scopes if I go to a darker looking area. Look there, all that kind of diamond or how would you describe it? Polyhedral kind of look that is a feature of the Rise of Iron raid, and many of the design concepts in it. They're absolutely beautiful looking weapon as well. Very good, one of the best raid weapons you can get, especially if you, like me, like using snipers as your main secondary in PvE. So let's check out the fusion rifle, and I have to say, one of the players that I was playing with, who'd already got so many things out of the raid, helping others and things, the one thing he really wanted was this fusion rifle, and it was great because we were in the raid and he finally got it. He was so happy, and because he likes using fusion rifles. Now, I'm not particularly keen on fusion rifles. I've never tended to gravitate towards them, but I do know they're extremely useful. So let's have a look at the perks on this one. Again, we have our Whirlwind's Curse, and we have 3 different barrels. So I've left it on more predictable recoil because fusion rifles tend to be quite hard to use in terms of their recoil. Army of 1, quick unassisted kills for this weapon, reduce grenade and melee cooldown. Very useful in close proximity situations. Small bore, now this you could do that one, increases your range a little bit, but the stability goes down, and you have slower reload size, and you reduce your magazine. So there's 3 detrimental effects to using small bore, so I haven't bothered with it. Speed reload, but the stability, as you can see, gets cut almost by 50%, so I left it on a braced frame for the stability. And then the main perk, 2 for 1, doubles the effectiveness of the Army 1 perk. So what you're doing is you get even more in a quick unassisted kills with this weapon, further reduce the grenade and melee cooldown. So in PvP, actually, this could be a very useful weapon to be using if you've got very strong melee and grenade attacks. And for hunters, I suppose that would be a blessing, because hunters tend to rely on both their melee and grenades and sidesteps. If I seem to remember, there's a called the Wombo combo, and this fusion rifle may indeed assist them in pulling off that combo better and more frequently, is what I'm trying to say. So yes, it had a beautiful sound, that whirring sound. Again, the kind of sights you get in the other, that beautiful kind of effect. Very nice. In fact, to be honest, compared to some other fusion rifles, the time that you need to actually charge the weapon seems to be quite short. So you've got very short charging up time on this weapon. And with other fusion rifles, you're actually holding it down for maybe, over a second, maybe like that. It seems very long before you get a full charge. But this one seems to work very quickly. And I suppose that's a very good perk. In fact, just that, having that reduced charge time, I can see why now that PvPers find it particularly useful, especially if they are then combining that with reduced grenade times and grenade reduced melee speed. Beautiful looking weapon. Fantastic. Look at that. That's amazing. Of course, this isn't really a fair test when I'm demonstrating these weapons. I'm only doing it to describe what I've got and to give you a general idea of how they work. I'm using these on very low enemies, and my light level is very high. So anyway, that is the fusion rifle called Ethanova. And now, before I go on and talk a little bit about the Matador, we're going to have a look at Sound Fury in action. But there is one very annoying aspect to this rocket launcher. What I felt was annoying about it is if you're going to have a rocket launcher from the main raid, that perhaps it should include tracking as standard, because tracking on rocket launchers is extremely useful, and especially in the raid. We have 2 bosses that have particular vulnerabilities on their head, so head targeting and doing criticals is very important if you want to do the most kind of damage you can. Okay, Axis has an exception to the rule now, where you can use swords, Dark Drinker being the sword, and you can attack his feet. But that's because Dark Drinker is so overwhelmingly powerful that it doesn't really matter that you're doing crits against his head, you're doing so much damage to him anyway with swords that you overshadow that. But generally speaking, when you're using a rocket launcher against a single target boss and you have a vulnerability such as the head where you want the actual shells to track to, not having a track assist on the raid rocket launcher, and especially considering that that's how I've described the raid and the vulnerabilities of the two main bosses, it did seem a little off to me. But let's have a look at it anyway. It does look awesome, and it's a Saurus. Well, you know, the Saurus regime being one of my all-time favourite exotics. And again, we have Whirlwind's Curse, and we have 3 types of launch. Now, I've left it on the last because it's increasing recoil all the time, and I don't particularly like recoil. I would like to reduce the recoil on a rocket launcher to make them easier to use and aim and generally stay focused on something. Spray and play. Increase the reload speed of this weapon when its mag is empty. Useful on a rocket launcher because they can be quite cumbersome. And then you have a choice of Javelin, Speed Reload or Quick Draw, and I've left it on Javelin because that means the shells will move quicker. And the main one for it is Wait for it. So reloading, again, similar to exactly the same as the Ex Machina. When you start with 3, but when you reload it, you'll have 4 shots. So you get a fair number of shots, but then there are other rocket launchers that have triple tubes. And actually, the main rocket launcher I use, legendary rocket launcher I use in the raid, has both tracking and a triple barrel. So it's very, very effective. I can get 3 shots out. They all track the boss. And, you know, I can use an exotic in another slot. So let's have a look at this thing in action. Obviously, with a rocket launcher, you don't want to get too close. I'd like to get right up. Well, it has got quite an effective blast radius. Hello? Look at that. I love rocket launchers. But rocket launchers, of course, you've got to be careful. If you're going to have a huge blast radius on your rocket launcher, you've got to be very wary of trying to do things too close. So that is the rocket launcher. Pretty good rocket launcher if you don't have other rocket launchers. You're not particularly you're more of a machine gun type of person, but possibly not the strongest raid weapon you can get. Now let's switch this out. This is the one I was talking about, by the way. I managed to get this from my faction, the Future War Cult, and as you can see, it's got the 2 best perks you can have on any rocket launcher: a tube that holds 3 shots and targeting. And look at the blast radius, absolutely incredible thing that is. I'd like to get one in maybe solar or void damage, and of course, as I keep opening packages from my faction, it's likely to do that. So anyway, let's carry on, and we're going to talk about the Matador. Now, the reason I'm talking about the Matador again was from what I said earlier on when I said I was talking to players who play a lot of PvP, and they're saying that there are 2 particular shotguns that are extremely useful in PvP. Now, the one that they like the most, I may be right in saying the only way you can get that is from doing trials. But the way I said, if you can't get that one, then the next choice is Matador. But what you're really looking for are certain rolls. Now, I don't think I have the right rolls on this, but I do have a rifle barrel and a linear compensator. So for PvP, the Matador, if you can get one, and they do drop fairly frequently actually, it seems to be one of the preferred shotguns in PvP. So we're going to try it out. I mean, very, very strong and very stable, actually, like the raid shotgun. So I can kind of see why they like it. Especially in trials, people tend to favour shotguns on certain maps, depending on the map. And that seems to be the way. It is very stable, I have to say. And it has got quite a good range here. Let's try out the range from a bit further. Let's see what happens. Oh, I have no ammo anyway. Okay. You're going to give me some ammo? That now it's typical. Right, let's drop some ammo. Again, the negative side of having a shotgun is the reload speed, although I suppose you could get perks to increase them, but they're never going to be as quick as other weapons. So yes, it all hits, but as you can see, the damage from a distance really isn't really noticeable, or as noticeable as up front. And that's to be expected. It is a shotgun. It's supposed to be a short-range weapon. So even from medium, I mean, that is a dreg. Let's try it from medium, which is... Yeah, now that's medium to short. Yeah, you see, really not that effective. So definitely a up-close and personal weapon, as you can see the difference now. Yeah, one-shot kill, one-shot kill. So that is the Matador. And I think that covers everything I wanted to cover in this video. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and I will catch you later. Ciao for now. Individual, go to random, look to digital. Guys are much red, trade now, baby.